Christmas morning has always smelled like cinnamon and memory to me. That day was no different, or so I thought. I woke before the sun, as I always did, careful not to creak the old wooden stairs as I made my way to the kitchen. The house was quiet, wrapped in that soft, sacred silence that only Christmas morning carries. The tree lights blinked gently in the living room, reflecting off ornaments I had collected over decades, some handmade by my son when he was little, others bought during years when money was tight. But love was plenty. I hummed softly as I worked, bacon sizzling, coffee brewing, the same routine I'd followed since my husband passed away, the same routine that made this house still feel alive. My son had insisted I move in with them after his father's death. "Mom, you shouldn't be alone," he'd said, and I believed him. I wanted to believe in family, in togetherness, in the idea that love multiplies when shared. My daughter-in-law, Marissa, came down the stairs just as I was placing plates on the table. Her smile appeared before she did, wide, polished, practiced. "Merry Christmas," she sang, her voice sweet as frosting. "Merry Christmas, dear," I replied, returning the smile that had become second nature, even when my heart didn't quite feel it. Marissa was beautiful in a way that demanded attention. Perfect hair, perfect posture, perfect tone. She hugged me lightly, her arms barely touching my back, like someone afraid of getting too close to something they didn't like, but had learned to tolerate. For years, I told myself we were fine, that not all love is loud, that some people simply express warmth differently. But warmth doesn't leave a room cold when it enters. I noticed the way her eyes followed me, not kindly, not curiously, but calculating. Like she was always measuring something. My movements, my words, my place in the family. She laughed easily with others, but with me there was always a thin edge beneath the sweetness. Still, it was Christmas. I chose peace. My son and the children soon joined us, the house filling with laughter and the sound of wrapping paper tearing. I watched my grandchildren open their gifts, their joy lighting up the room, and for a moment everything felt right. Worth it, all the sacrifices, all the quiet compromises. Then Marissa disappeared into the kitchen. She returned a few minutes later carrying 2 mugs of coffee. The aroma was rich and strong, darker than usual. She handed one to me with both hands, her fingers lingering just a second too long on the handle. "I made this just for you," she said brightly. I added a secret ingredient. I chuckled lightly. "Oh, is it safe for an old woman?" She laughed too quickly. "Of course, it's Christmas." Her eyes didn't smile. Something tightened in my chest. A feeling I hadn't felt in years, the same instinct that once told me not to trust a charming business partner. The same quiet warning that had saved my family before. I looked down at the coffee. It was darker than mine usually was. The smell was off, not bad, just unfamiliar. Marissa turned away to adjust something on the table, her back to me. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe it was intuition, maybe it was fear, maybe it was the accumulation of 1,000 small moments I had brushed aside for the sake of harmony. My hands moved before my mind could argue. I switched the cups. The motion was simple, silent, almost invisible. When Marissa turned back, she lifted the remaining mug, the one meant for me, and took a sip without hesitation. I held the other cup in my hands, my heart beating so loudly I was sure everyone could hear it. "Delicious," she said, smiling. I forced a nod. "Yes, it smells lovely." We sat down. Gifts continued to open. Laughter echoed. Christmas music played softly in the background. But I couldn't focus. I watched Marissa, every breath, every movement, every blink. And as the minutes passed, I felt it in my bones. Whatever was in that coffee was never meant to be a gift. And within an hour, Christmas morning would turn into something none of us would ever forget. At first, nothing happened. That was the cruelest part. Marissa laughed with the children, her voice rising and falling like bells, her hand resting casually on my son's arm. She sipped her coffee slowly, confidently, as though it were just another harmless holiday indulgence. I told myself I was being foolish, paranoid, an old woman imagining shadows where there were none, but my hands wouldn't stop trembling. I barely touched the mug in front of me. The warmth seeped into my palms, heavy and threatening. Every instinct screamed at me not to drink it. So I didn't. I set it aside and watched. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Marissa's laughter faltered. She pressed her lips together and blinked hard, as if the room had suddenly shifted. She stood up abruptly, knocking her chair back. "Are you okay?" my son asked. "Yes," she said quickly, too quickly. "Just a little dizzy." A thin line of sweat appeared at her hairline. I felt my stomach drop. She tried to wave it off, but her hands were shaking now. Her smile slipped, revealing something raw underneath fear. Pure and unfiltered, she reached for the table, steadying herself. "I think I need some air," she murmured. Before anyone could respond, she staggered. The mug slipped from her fingers and shattered on the floor, dark coffee splashing like spilled ink across the tiles. The sound was sharp, final, then she crumpled. The room erupted in chaos. The children screamed. My son rushed to her side, calling her name over and over. I stayed frozen in my chair, my heart pounding so violently I thought it might burst. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not to her, not like this. An ambulance arrived within minutes, though it felt like hours. The house smelled of panic and broken ceramic. I rode in the back, clutching my coat around me, replaying every second in my mind. At the hospital, the doctors moved quickly. Questions were asked. Blood was drawn. I watched through a glass window as Marissa lay pale and still, machines beeping around her like an accusation. "What did she eat or drink this morning?" one doctor asked. My son hesitated. "Just breakfast, coffee." The word hung in the air. "The cup, my cup." My legs nearly gave out. An hour later, the doctor returned, his expression grave but controlled. "She ingested something that caused a severe reaction," he said, "a substance that shouldn't have been in her system." My son looked at me then, confusion etched into his face. "Mom, did you drink your coffee?" "No," I whispered. "I didn't." Silence fell between us. The doctor continued, based on the concentration. It was intentional, mixed carefully. Intentional. The word sliced through me. I pressed my hand to my chest as memories flooded back, every sharp glance, every subtle insult. Every time Marissa made me feel like an intruder in the home I helped build. She hadn't wanted to make me sick. She had wanted to remove me. I remembered her words spoken sweetly, casually, like a joke. Asterisk. I added a secret ingredient. Asterisk. My son sat down heavily, his face in his hands. "That coffee that was for you, wasn't it?" I couldn't answer. I could only nod. Tears blurred my vision as the truth settled into my bones. A truth more bitter than any poison. The woman I had welcomed into my family. The woman who kissed my cheek every morning. The woman who called me asterisk mom asterisk. She had tried to kill me, and if I hadn't trusted my instincts, if I hadn't switched those cups, I wouldn't be sitting there telling this story. As machines hummed and nurses moved around us, one thought echoed in my mind, louder than the rest. Asterisk asterisk, betrayal doesn't always come with raised voices or angry words. Sometimes it comes warm in a coffee cup on Christmas morning. Asterisk asterisk, Marissa survived. That fact alone fractured something inside me. She lay in a hospital bed for 3 days, weak and pale, surrounded by concerned faces and whispered prayers. People called her lucky, a miracle. They spoke of how close she'd come to something terrible, never realizing how close asterisk I asterisk had come instead. I visited once. She opened her eyes when she heard my footsteps. For a brief moment, the mask slipped. There was no sweetness there, no charm, only naked terror, and something else, anger, you. She croaked, her voice barely above a whisper. I said nothing. I just looked at her. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask asterisk, why asterisk? But the words lodged in my throat like stones. Instead, I turned and left. My son stayed by her side day and night. I didn't blame him. He was torn between two truths, that couldn't exist together. The woman he married, and the mother who raised him. Watching him break quietly in the hallway hurt more than the betrayal itself. "Mom," he said one night, voice trembling, "she says she doesn't remember putting anything in the coffee. She thinks someone is trying to frame her." I studied his face, the same face I kissed after every scraped knee, every heartbreak. "And do you believe that?" I asked softly. He didn't answer. Silence became my shield. The police came. Questions were asked. Statements taken. I told them only what was necessary. I didn't accuse. I didn't demand justice. I didn't even cry in front of them. What good would it do? The truth already lived between us like a loaded weapon. While Marissa recovered, small cracks began to appear. Investigators found inconsistencies. A nurse mentioned overhearing her panic when doctors discussed toxicology results. A technician noted the substance wasn't something that could be ingested by accident. Then came the phone. My son found it while packing a bag for her. Hidden apps, deleted messages, search histories that told a story no one wanted to read aloud. How long does poison stay undetectable? What symptoms mimic heart failure? Elderly overdose signs. He showed me the screen with shaking hands. I closed my eyes. That night I sat alone in my room, staring at the ceiling, replaying my life in fragments. I thought about all the times I chose peace over confrontation, all the times I swallowed discomfort to keep my family together. Kindness, I realized, had been mistaken for weakness. I could have destroyed her then, pressed charges. Spoken publicly, watched her fall in one dramatic moment, but I didn't, because revenge born of rage leaves scars on everyone, including the innocent. So I waited. I let her lie. I let her deny. I let her believe she'd escaped. And in that quiet waiting, something stronger than anger grew inside me. Clarity. I wasn't just protecting myself anymore. I was protecting my son, my grandchildren, the truth. One evening, as snow fell softly outside the window, I looked at my reflection, older, tired, but unbroken. And I made my choice. If the truth was going to come out, it would come out clean, undeniable, and at the moment when it would hurt the most. Because some lessons cannot be shouted. They must be revealed, slowly. The truth has a way of ripening in silence. By the time Marissa returned home, the house felt different, quieter, heavier. She moved carefully, like someone walking through a room filled with glass. She avoided my eyes, avoided my presence, but I noticed everything. The way her hands shook when she thought no one was watching. The way her smile no longer reached her eyes. She thought she'd won. I let her believe it. Weeks passed. Christmas decorations came down. Life resumed its routine. But beneath it all, tension coiled tightly. My son grew distant from her, distracted, watchful. Trust, once cracked, never truly heals. Then came the family gathering. It was my idea, a simple Sunday dinner. Nothing extravagant, just family, just truth waiting patiently at the table. Everyone came, my son, my grandchildren, even Marissa, dressed perfectly, her voice calm, her performance flawless. Halfway through dinner I stood up. I want to say something. I said gently, the room stilled. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I spoke the way mothers do. Softly, carefully, with love wrapped around steel. I want to talk about Christmas morning. Marissa froze. I turned to my son first. You've always known me to be careful, thoughtful. I trust my instincts. They kept you safe your whole life. Then I looked at her. The coffee that morning wasn't meant for you, I said, and we all know it. She laughed nervously. This again, doctors said it could have been. I'm not finished. I interrupted, still calm. I placed a folder on the table. Inside were printed search histories, screenshots, medical confirmations, a timeline so precise it could not be dismissed. I waited, I said, because I wanted the truth to speak louder than anger. My son's face crumpled as he read. The children were quietly ushered into another room. Marissa stood abruptly. You switched the cups, she hissed. You did this to me. I met her gaze without flinching. No, I said, I survived you. Silence crashed down like thunder. My son stood too. Get out, he said, his voice breaking. Get out of my house. She tried to plead, to cry, to rewrite the story one last time, but lies collapse when faced with patience. Legal consequences followed. Divorce papers, restraining orders, a life unraveled not by vengeance, but by truth. I moved into a smaller home near the children. My son healed slowly, so did I. Sometimes, on quiet mornings, I still make coffee and sit by the window, watching the world wake up. I think about that moment, 2 cups, 1 choice, and I smile, because the sweetest revenge wasn't the cup she drank. It was the life I kept.